Hey guys, welcome back for another demo. So what I'm going to be covering in this demo is um, a couple different types of masking that you can do in Photoshop. Um, and what I've found over the years that I've been teaching Photoshop, masking is the one thing that I seem to have to repeat myself on quite a bit. I'm not sure why, no matter how well I tend to explain it. Something's always forgotten or something is confused as to how the methods and process works for masking out either objects or shapes in Photoshop and even Illustrator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do kind of an in-depth look at least two of the main masking methods for dealing with images in Photoshop. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to make myself a just a plain old document where I can just deal with showing you guys how these shapes work. So this is just going to be plain old document right here. Nothing special. And your actual project dimensions for the document will be on your handout, so reference that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make myself a quick shape here. I'm just going to make a circle, and I'm going to fill it with a color. So here on my canvas I have this circle on its own layer. So now say I really want this circle to have a texture over top of it. I really want this to be a brickwork pattern across this circle. So what I want to do is I want to lay that texture in, but I really don't want to commit to it because I'm not sure if the brick is going to work, or I may want to swap out for another brick image. I may want to resize the circle, or even at some point change the shape of the circle, maybe cut a portion out of it. So what I want to do is retain as much of the information as I can in a non-destructive way, so that way I can modify it later on, or if I'm perfectly happy with it, commit to the changes and make it something that's solid in the document. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my texture. I need to go find my texture. And there's a reference to this link in your documents probably numerous times throughout the semester. This is a website called cgtextures.com, and I've used this for a number of years. Definitely something worth signing up for. It's free. They've never sent me an email. I've never gotten spam from these guys. It's a fantastic service and resource for digital artists and traditional artists as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to drill down to brick. So right here in the front there's brick, and then I'm just going to start looking for the brick pattern that I want. I'm kind of digging these ones here. That's kind of cool. So I'm just going to come in here, and what you're going to see is like some of these, there is a pay to download feature for this for very large files in some instances. But for our purposes here, the largest file you can get access to is going to be good enough. And for the document that I'm working on, I'm not going to need anything super huge. So I'm just going to grab the medium document here. It's going to go and download. I'm going to find that file I just downloaded. There it is right there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this into my Photoshop document. Hopefully it pops open here. Yep, there it is. And I'm just going to confirm that I'm dropping it in. Now when this drops it in, it's going to drop it in as what's called a smart object in most instances. So a smart object in Photoshop, as you can see, it's denoted by this little icon here in the thumbnail. Smart objects retain their native resolution. So that means this image is actually much larger than the document that I have here. So if I wanted to, I could hit Command T, free transform, and I could scale this up, and it's, you know, until it hits that native resolution that it had to begin with, it's not going to start to look pixelated. So I can scale this up or down as I need to without worry of it getting, you know, horribly grainy or fuzzy or all pixelated like you'd see when you blew up an image in Photoshop and increased its size beyond what it was, you know, its original resolution was to begin with. And this is something that you're going to need to be aware of and sort of keep track of as you're putting together your digital collages. You want to be scanning your objects in, collecting your resources at a resolution that's going to work for the size of your actual collage document. So if you want that penny to be twice as big, if your native Photoshop document for your digital collage is 360 in resolution, you're going to want to double that for that penny to make it look twice as big and not get all grainy and pixelated in your document, unless grainy and pixelated is what you're going for. And that sort of gets back to our, you know, designing with intent. There has to be a reason for that. I don't want to see a whole document full of horribly pixelated and grainy scans and not having a reason for that being there. So be aware of that as you're going through the process. Okay, so I've got my texture right there. I want to basically crop this so that it fits right on that circle. So there's a really simple step to doing that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to position it over top of my circle. I'm going to make sure it's above the circle in the layer stack. I'm going to right click and I'm going to hit Create Clipping Mask. And like magic, there it is. So what I can do now is if I click and drag just using my move tool, I can move this texture around and position it, find a location of you know, where I'm starting to like what the stones look like on it. This is kind of cool here. And if I need to move the whole thing, you can obviously grab just the circle and move just that on its own. Or if I hold down Shift and click on both, I can move the whole circle and place it wherever I want it to be. Okay, so clipping mask, that's one of the masking methods that we're going to be looking at here. So remember, texture goes above the object you want it to adhere to. And again, if I shut off this, it's being applied just to that circle. So this upper layer is looking for solid, even transparent pixel information underneath that it's going to apply that texture to. Think of it kind of like working with a cookie cutter. That shape underneath is acting like a cookie cutter. Even if this is transparent, so if I were to, let's see here, oops, there's my eraser tool. If I had part of this circle that was, you know, 44% transparent, you're going to see that reflected in how that clipping mask is applied. So you can do some pretty cool stuff with you know, gradations over that circle, things of that nature, where this, you know, texture may fade off in spots, or you know, some of this may disappear somehow. You know, say you wanted to just have that whole thing disappear there. Very doable with this process and how you're modifying that shape underneath. So texture above, always above the shape you want it applied to. Right click and apply clipping mask. If you need to release it, you can do the same thing there. And the clipping mask is always denoted by moving that thumbnail over and our little over and down arrow pointing to the layer underneath. Now you can apply clipping masks to a number of different things. One of the cool things that I like to do is what's called a non-destructive layer, or an adjustment layer right here. This little half moon icon. These also can be used as a clipping mask. So if I want to adjust the saturation on this, just make it a clipping mask. You can see they kind of stack So what I can now do is adjust that to get the look the look that I desire for this stonework. So a lot of cool different options. And this sort of leads us to our next method of masking out objects in Photoshop. You'll see here this non-destructive layer that I put in using this menu system down here. It has this second thumbnail attached to it. If I double click on this one, it opens up that dialog again. I can modify stuff. But it's got this blank one right here. So what is this? This is a layer mask thumbnail. And a layer mask basically allows you to either hide or show information based on gradations from black to white. Black hiding information, white showing information, and the gradations of gray in between, whether they tend toward black or white, will either hide or show more in terms of or by means of transparency. So let me just show you how that works. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a duplicate of this set of 3, and I'm going to merge these together. So now I have a committed shape. I'm happy with the way it looks, so I committed right to it. I'm just going to spin that. Move this one out of the way. Okay, so say I wanted to remove sections of this object here, but I didn't want to delete them entirely because I may want to keep them for one reason or another. I might want to bring some of them back or hide some more. What I can do is use a layer mask to do that. So I can retain that visual information without getting rid of it until I'm happy with how it looks. And this goes back again to that first initial demo that we did with masking things out and putting your head into another scene entirely. It's the same thing that we've dealt with previously. So I'm going to hit the little button down here, and that's going to add a layer mask right there. So what I've got now is this second thumbnail. So if I want to work on the actual pixels here, I will choose the thumbnail on the left. If I want to work on the mask, I'll choose the thumbnail on the right. And you can see it's highlighted by these little brackets around the edge of it. So now what I'll do is grab my paintbrush, and I'm using the left and right bracket keys just above return to adjust the brush size. And I'm going to grab some black paint, and I'm going to get rid of some of this shape. So it's as easy as going in with black or gray or even some opacity laid into this and just painting away the content that you don't want. If you go too far, say whoops, I don't want to do that. What you can do is just invert your color block to white and come back through and paint back in the content that you want. It's as easy as that. So what this allows me to do is come in and modify this shape without losing any of that pixel information that I originally had. So if I hold down Shift and I turn this mask off and on just by clicking on it, you can see that content is still there. I've still got that information. It's right there, readily available if I want to bring it back. So this is useful in a number of instances where, say you're, masking out your brother's head to put him on some sort of dinosaur's body or anything of that nature, or even just simply as repairing some photos that are, kind of damaged. Bringing in stuff for digital collages, lots and lots of different options for utilizing a layer mask. Understanding how that works and how you can retain that information, and even with a nice soft brush, hide or show some of it in a nice even transition. you can do some pretty cool stuff. So make sure you play around with the layer mask and the clipping mask, get an idea of how it works, how they function, and make sure that you're implementing them in your digital collages. I just don't want to see objects that you've brought in and then taken the eraser and trimmed out, or done like a quick select on and deleted the content you don't want. Really think about the quality of the edge, blending your shapes and objects together in ways where they need to be. Say you're taking a car and attaching the trunk of a tree coming out the side of it. Think about how those two transition together, even as far as like altering the color, and maybe just bringing in a little bit of opacity to allude to that they're connected in some way and not just hard cut and stuck together. So be aware of that as you're going about this process. And this video is here definitely as a good resource to remind you guys how this stuff works. You can also email me, all the usual methods. So good luck, have fun, play around with it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with for our initial critique.